Guys, welcome to my channel. My name is Valentine Lister, and today I wanted to give you a quick reference on all of the numbers in the tarot cards and what they mean. So this, I've covered what numbers mean in other videos, but in this, I'm just going to do like a quick run through of each number from 1 to 21, because that's how many cards are in the major arcana, and that's what the numbers go up to. And because I live in a house with lots of child resources, I have my handy dandy, number toolkit here that my 3-year-old uses, and I thought this would be fun. And we're all about having fun here. So yeah, we're gonna do that. Also, just wanna make a quick announcement before I get into it. I just wanna let you guys know, if you're into symbolism, like what the symbolism means in tarot cards, and you're also into astrology and wanna know how the two mix, I have an astrology and tarot cheat sheet for you guys that lists every astrological correspondence. So it lists each card and which zodiac sign, planets, elements that, I can't talk. Okay, but it lists, which card goes with which sign, zodiac symbol, planet, element, all that jazz. You can find that awesome resource in the link in the description below under the timestamps. I've already gotten great feedback on it. And I know why, because when I was looking up to make sure I'm like on the right page with, like astrology and tarot for my card videos, like I had to look at like 2 to 3 resources each time to find what I needed to find. And I don't have time for that. So I decided to make one document on that where you can really look up everything super quickly. So again, you can get that in the link under the timestamps in the description box below as a thank you for signing up for my awesome mailing list. So there's more details on that in the link in the description below. Super pumped. All right, so let's get into these numbers. Okay, so I forgot, we actually start with number 0. And I'm gonna use this Cookie Monster cookie from this box here to represent 0. And 0 represents the source, the soul, oneness. Like, we're not incarnated into the world yet. We're still a soul. So there is nothing as far as physical manifestation or anything. We're just one in this beautiful like source energy, the soul, and connected to everyone and anything, everything. And we're not separate in a body just yet. So number 1 is associated with creation, manifestation, action, really getting out there into the world. So this is associated with the magician, where we enter the body and we're good to go. And it's really associated with like this forceful masculine energy that's putting itself out there. And next we have the number 2, and that is associated with duality. So it's the balance of polarity, like the balance of masculine and feminine, the balance of yin and yang, male and female, private and public, separate and together, achieving balance, sensitivity to others, immersing yourself in another person. So the number 2 is also can be associated with femininity, because with the feminine, we're starting to view ourselves in relation to the other and value other people and relationships and how we interact with one another. And it's also associated like with these 2 polarities in finding harmony between the 2. Okay, so with the number 3, things are starting to manifest and come into creation. We're starting to see the big picture and starting to bring things to life, basically. So 3 in astrology is related to the trine. And with the trine, we start to see support. So number 3 in astrology is related to the trine, and that's related to Jupiter. And what is Jupiter? Jupiter is wisdom, but it's also cheerfulness, optimism, joy. It's expansion, being able to communicate like easily and openly with other people, and having clarity. And the 3 has this sense of ease when it comes to creation and putting your ideas out there and putting them into life. Okay, so the next we have the 4, and with the 4, we think of a square. And with the square in astrology is related to Mars energy. So we can think of a conflict, we can think of work energy and toil. And this can be both like a positive thing and a negative thing, because it can mean setting foundations for things that we want to create, right? We have this easy creation energy in the 3, but realistically, when we really want to bring things to life, there is work that goes towards it. There's a fight at some point to be able to really like ground that into physical reality. And that's what the 4 represents. And the 4 can also represent the 4 elements, right? So going throughout a cycle of a year, there's 4 different seasons that we have to go through, right, to get to the next year. So it's like the things that you have to go through, the way that you have to push forward through like the good times where it's like summer or spring, or even if you like the fall, and then you have to push through this winter where things are like dark and cold and unpleasant. And so the 4 represents difficulty, but also the importance of fighting for what you believe in, and really working hard to get where you want. All right, so with the 5, we start to get into like chaos type energy. Like there's the 5s represent freedom, but with freedom there is basically nothing supporting it. So with the 5s, they're not related to like a planet in astrology, and they're actually in Hellenistic astrology, which I'm studying. 5s are not related to any supporting aspect. Basically, there is no support to a planet or an area in your life. So again, the 5s represent like freedom, instability, and change. So this can really be a roller coaster ride, and their stress and instability can be too much to handle, but can also suggest excitement and adventure and movement. So it's a challenging place, right? Sorry about covering this 5, right? It's a challenging place if you hate change, but if you like excitement and adventure and chaos, 5s are for you. So next we have the beautiful 6. We can think of this nurturing, harmonious, loving, even motherly energy, but like a mother that is like super sexy and alive. And you know why? Because this sextile in astrology, traditionally, in traditional astrology, Hellenistic astrology, is associated with the goddess Venus. So when we think about Venus, we think about pleasure, beauty, harmony, love, mothering, nurturing. We think of caring, service, and social responsibility. Venus loves to make everything nice. So she can take the ugliest things in life, in the world, with people, and just smooth them over and make them feel lovely and nice. And in such a harsh world, she can make you feel like this place isn't so bad, because there's so much beauty in it. And she can take opposite things and bring them together and make it all make sense. So when you see the 6, you're in for a really beautiful, lovely time. All right, so now we get into these 7s. Now we're getting out of the aspect part of astrology. There's really nothing necessarily connected to the 7s, but it relates to these 7 traditional planets in the solar system. And you may not know this, but what makes that's basically all of the planets up until Saturn. And then the planets that we need a telescope to see are Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. So in traditional astrology, they could only see up until Saturn. And so that made 7 planets if you include the moon. So let me see, can I list them out? What we would consider a planet in astrology would be the moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, the sun, Jupiter, and Saturn. Okay, I got it. So with that being said, we can think of spirituality and inner reflection and solitude, and really thinking about these big spiritual or topics of meaning, of what life means and what spirituality is, what is the bigger picture, and cycles of birth and rebirth. And cycles of wisdom. So we can think of like 7 heavens, 7 days in a week, the 7 chakras, 7 notes in a musical scale, and again, the 7 planets in astrology. Okay, so number 8. So what you might notice about number 8 is if you turn it on its side, it's like the infinity symbol, and kind of like what we see on the magician's head and also in the strength card. And so it represents infinity, going back and forth, the soul's eternal travel through the body, going both through birth and life and then through death and back again, right? If you think of like reincarnation, which I do personally believe in that, maybe you do or don't, but you do see it's also representing this cycle of life where people are born and die and then born and die, and it's this cycle of eternity. So I also think of it as like the soul's hunger, like for the world, of getting into the world and getting like the best it can out of it. Because you think of the 8 is also associated with the Ouroboros. So that is like the dragon, the serpent eating its tail. And so the serpent is like hungry for power, hungry for worldly influence, abundance, material prosperity, having power, like having really the ultimate experience in terms of like the physical reality. And it's also the part of us that wants to escape the world. And that part of us, if you're into Eastern philosophy, keeps us in the cycle of life. So we could get out of the cycle of life if we could let go of all of the things we want. But I think, the soul thinks it's kind of fun to be here. I mean, life is like pretty exciting if you step back and look at it from an objective point. And it's really like a choose your own adventure story. If you ever read those, you get to see what happens. You get to go on adventures. Life is scary, but that makes it exciting. And a super cool experience. So 8 also represents our need to keep having these intense experiences, of life. Okay, so next we get into the 9, and the 9 represents the end of a cycle, because the next number will be technically 10, right? But with numerology, you would add the 1 and the 0 and get back down to 1. And we don't get back to 0. Sorry, guys. So it's actually the 9 that represents the end of a cycle, not the 10 or more. In numerology, we're really getting, we could go 0 through 9 or 1 through 9, basically. So the 9 also represents, because that it's the end of a cycle, so it's wisdom through experience, and it's like a time to start integrating the experience. We do continue that experience in the 10, but it really is like, it's 9 is associated with the Hermit card, so it's time to reflect on that and start looking at the lessons that we've learned. Also represents through experience, right? We probably have had some hard knocks of life by the time we get to 9. So it represents compassion, tolerance, and humanitarianism. Because usually those of us who have big hearts and get hurt by life also start thinking about, well, I was hurt by this experience. How can I learn and grow from that experience and help other people? So that is a cycle that we go through. And so it also represents completion, wholeness, and satisfaction. And I think probably in relation to that this meant something, and that we can help other people through our experience. And it also represents intellect, because we have that reflection part of it as well, just like what the Hermit does. All right, so next we have the number 10, which represents both an ending and a beginning. So we start to take all of the lessons that we learned through 1 through 9, like when we came into the body and started learning, and we start reflecting on that, and we go, do we want to like stagnate in the familiar, like stay with what we know to be safe, which is kind of making me think of that 8 energy, like that infinity energy. But anyway, or do we want to move forward in a different way based on the lessons we learned and try something different? So it's also tends also represent a transition and a turning point. Are we going to take the lessons that we've learned and like do something with it? Or are we like, you know what, I'm kind of fine with the way things are. I don't want to change anything. Even if we're super uncomfortable, maybe we don't want to. So it's really time to decide, do we want to end this cycle, and do we want to start a new one? And it could also represent a forced choice to start on a new cycle. And we are going to decide how we want to do the next cycle. So we have the number 11, and I really loved learning about this number because it's like we all look at 1111 and my true love and yada yada, right? So what it actually represents is harmony between the warring parts of self, because the 1 represents like our self, like the ego's drive, like the individual drive to push forward, to go out into the life and get what we want, right? And that was more masculine energy. But then 1 + 1 adds down to 2. So 11 is related to the 2 in numerology, and 2 represents the feminine, which is all about like reflection, the inner experience, drawing people in to us and considering our relationships with the other, right? That it's not just about ourselves, but we are living here as a person in relation to other people. And so our relationships with other people, with other souls, is super important. And so there really is this war between what I want to do personally, and then with creating harmony with other people. And so the 11 can really mean leadership in a group, that I'm going to put myself forward, right? And I'm going to better myself, but I'm not just going to better myself for just me, that I am going to also inspire other people to be the best of themselves as well. So next we have the number 12, and the 12 is all about perfection and duality. And so perfection, I'm thinking of with the 12 is finding your tribe, because with the 12, we have a lot of examples of how they're, with the number 12, there is like a leader, and then there are 12 people or like deities or whatnot around that leader. One of them is the 12 signs of the zodiac revolving around the sun, right, in the solar system. And so I have some other examples of this. So the physical sun goes through a cycle of 12 months. There's also these 12 sons of Jacob who founded the 12 tribes of Israel. There's the 12 princes of Ishmael, the 12 Olympian deities. There's the 12 apostles of Osiris. And there are also the 12 apostles of Jesus. And then the 12 knights that were around King Arthur's Round Table. So with the 12, you really can think, especially if you think in terms of astrology, is thinking of that sun. And then we have the 12 zodiac signs going around as a group. And so there's like the individual leader, right, with the one. And then there's this harmony with this group that is following and devoted to a leader for a higher purpose. And next we have the number 13. I don't have a ton to say about the number 13 other than it symbolizes like perpetual movement of creation, this continuation of renewal type energy, and it's associated with the death card. So basically like, there is death, right? And so death of the self possibly, but then there's also like this recreation in that death. There's this like transformation and rebirth. So we have that beautiful creation energy of the 3. So with the number 13, you might want to think of the death card. You might want to think like Friday the 13th or whatever. Like there is an ending, but even, and that ending might be unpleasant, but with that ending, there's new creation coming into life. Okay, so next we have the number 14, and that represents a firm structure to support the mind, right? Because the 4 is all about structure and like putting things kind of into a box, like organizing it, the conflict and toil that comes from that. But we also have that reflective energy of the self, because 14, we could have, say there's like a 10 in there. So there is some reflection on how to move forward and to structure things. And so again, like the 4 is the foundation, putting things into order. And the 10 was like the cycle of like having something end and having a new beginning and reflecting on that transition and how you want to move forward. Basically, 14 is like creating a structure of foundation based on the higher self and reflection through your experiences. So the number 15, we get into some good times because the number 15 is associated with eroticism. And this would make perfect sense because I believe the number 15, yes, is associated with the devil card. So you get an idea of number 15, a little bit sinister, but a little bit pleasurable too. It's like our dirty little secret. So that is because it combines the number 10, right? With 5, we get 15. And so 10 was that completion, and the evaluation and the start of a new cycle and deciding, what we're going to bring from that. Are we going to continue in our bad habits, or are we going to try something new? And with 15, we're probably sticking with our bad habits for this new cycle. And remember that the 5 represented, freedom, stress, instability, and change. If the 5 is free, but it's unstable, it doesn't really have a structure or anything to land on. So it's like chaos and change. Now, if you like a good time by being bad, number 15 is for you. So number 16 is related to solar light and is sacred to the sun. Now, why? So we have we have 10 plus 6. So, it's like the completion, reevaluation, new beginning, right? End of a cycle, start of a new one. And then it's also this like beautiful number 6, which is the number of like harmony, nurturing, service, relationships, Venus. So pleasure, making things beautiful, making our relationships beautiful and really pleasant and harmonious and like breathtaking beauty, right? So awesome. So also 1 plus 6 adds up to the number 7. And so that is the number again of wisdom and spirituality, like these cycles of life, like the 7 planets, 7 days in a week, 7 notes on a musical scale, which makes me think of Venus, right? With the number 6 in here. So it's reflection and solitude, birth and rebirth. And the sun loves these things. So in this card, like completion, harmony, and rebirth is created by light, tearing things down that do not serve it. So the light tearing things down that do not serve it and restarting with this beautiful cycle of like harmony, beauty, pleasantness. And also Venus can be associated with justice as well, which is like the beauty when society is working in beautiful harmony. So with number 17, we have a higher awareness of our inner light. So again, the 10, the ending, evaluation, new beginning, with the wisdom that we've learned. And then we have 7. So that was like going inward to reflect, in solitude, birth and rebirth, like this spiritual type of wisdom. And so it does like 1 plus 7 also adds like up to 8. And so it's like that cycle of life. But this is starting this cycle with a lot of like wisdom to it and a lot of hope, because 17 is related to the star card. And it's like finding all of this like universal, like higher wisdom, and then starting to think, how do I want to bring it into life? Bring it to other people who are stuck in this cycle of karma, of birth and rebirth, and perhaps are suffering. How can we make it so to like help people incorporate like this higher learning and knowledge that will help them to connect to the soul and connect to their inner light so that they can have hope, and connect to what's eternal. All right, so next we have number 18, which is like an exploration of sacred realms. So the 10, hopefully you memorized it by now. It's the end of the cycle and the beginning of a cycle with the wisdom that we've learned, right? And we also have 8, which represents that like infinity, that karmic cycle going in and out, and like abundance, worldly power, influence that we keep trying to chase. And so 1 plus 8 adds up to 9, which is the end of a cycle, wisdom through experience and integration. And so number 18 is associated with the moon card. So we also think about the mysteries of life. Like we have this wisdom, we continue with it, and yet with this wisdom we're also keep going through these like cycles of life, like this dragon energy. I've heard it called like the serpent, where we're still kind of chasing this worldly power and wisdom, or worldly power, and like we want to get things right in life and have these like intense experiences, but then it's also associated with the cycle of wisdom. So the moon is constantly changing. So if you're studying astrology, when you start to study it, you see how fast the moon goes around the whole entire chart. It goes around super speedily. The moon is only in a sign for a day or two. And so there's like mystery and magic and a lot of wisdom to the moon, but it's always changing. So it has this like impermanent quality like to it, like people do. Like our bodies are impermanent and they go through all of these experiences, and yet that cycle of life, being in a body, and kind of being in the dark and not connecting, right? We don't really know why we came here, what we're doing here in the soul. Somehow connecting to that through this impermanent experience. And that's what number 18 represents. So next we have number 19, which is the number of ultimate attainment. And we can kind of understand this because it's associated with the sun card and with the soul. So the joy of our higher self and connecting to our higher self. So again, it's the 10, completion, and having a new beginning based on the lessons that we've learned. And then we have the number 9, which is like that cycle of wisdom and reflection and going inward. And it's also wisdom. So there is a lot of wisdom and understanding through experience in the number 19. And the numbers 1 through 9 add to 10, right? Again. And then it goes down to 1. So manifestation, creation, and action. But we're not just taking action like in the dark, where like from the fool to the magician, it's like we don't know any better. So we just come into the world and do our thing and take action, and we don't know exactly what's going on. But the 19 is full of wisdom of the soul. The soul's remembrance of who they are and what you're doing here and what you're supposed to be doing, in that higher self-expression of the soul integrated into the body. And both of those experiences are important, right? The soul, which is permanent, and then the body, which is impermanent. There's something about this experience that's super important to the soul. All right, so number 20, hopefully I can get this in here. It represents 2 sets of 10. And so we have these 2 journeys, right? We get up to 20. And so there have been like technically, right, if you look at it, like 2 cycles or a few cycles of learning and experience, right? There's the first cycle where we're going in blinds, like 1 through 10. And then the next 1 through 10, we do have some wisdom and knowledge that we're carrying with us from the past. And we also have 20, right? 2 plus 0 adds down to 2. So there is this merging of duality and polarities of masculine and feminine, yin and yang, private and public, separate and together, and somehow connecting to others and connecting our journeys in relationships to others. That there's something important we're learning that needs to come to light. And it doesn't just need to come to light for us, but it needs to come to light universally for everyone. Everyone needs to have this knowledge of the 20. And we can understand that because the 20 is associated with the judgment card. So that was like the rapture, the revelation, the end of the world, and that the truth and justice finally comes to life. Even in our journeys, we might not have found justice in everything that happened. There were probably some hard knocks of life and some things that didn't go right. But in the 20, everything is righted. Everything, well, actually, and everything comes to light. Everything is known. There's really nothing that you can hide when it comes to what's eternal and your actions. And so again, judgment really makes me think of like, we have this wisdom and knowledge. Like I've had an inner journey, right? And have made peace with a lot of things in myself. But related to like the 20, I can't just keep this to myself. There's something about when you get to a point, you learn some wisdom and knowledge, that you really feel called to share it, or others call you. Because I have heard, some gurus and people say like at a certain point, like, better than to try to teach people because you're aware of your ignorance, in addition to your wisdom, and you have that like beginner's mind of looking at everything fresh. And so you don't necessarily want to teach people, but people ask you to teach. That's not where I am. I like just get on camera and want to share whether people ask me or not. And I really enjoy it. So the 20 is this like call to share your wisdom with others, and the truth with others, or it's like people engaging you and asking you to share your truth as well. Okay, and last but not least, we have the number 21. And I love the meaning of this number after going through all the numbers, is that it's co creation with the divine force. So, as opposed to 12, where we started with the number one, we're starting with the number two and realizing that what we're creating here, we have to create with others, we have to create with our higher self. We have to create it with the divine, and we're making peace with life on earth. That's a beautiful thing about, we talk about enlightenment or wanting to get that to the highest spiritual state. And I used to think that would make me like, not connected to the world, otherworldly, like the worlds wouldn't matter to me anymore. And more I'm finding that it's not that. What enlightenment ends up being is being able to make peace with life the way it is, not changing anything, and still having this euphoria of living and appreciating all of the cycles of life and the beauty of life. So there is the famous, I think it's Tao Te Ching, right? Or it's some famous Eastern philosophy is like, before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water, and after enlightenment, chop wood and carry water. It's the same stuff, but it is the way that you're experiencing it that completely changes you and puts you at complete peace. So it's manifesting, it's taking action in unity with the source of creation. All right, I love you guys so much. Thanks for journeying with me through these numbers. This was fun. And this is just a quick reminder that if you really like this video, you want to, catch more, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell to be notified for when I release my next video. And for those of you who are following the Minor Arcana series, I'm going to start in my next video, I'm going to start with the Ace of Cups next. And so in the meantime, if you haven't caught my other videos on tarot symbolism, I did a tarot and astrology video, and I also have that cheat sheet. Remember, if you want to get that, make sure to snag it. So anyway, I'll leave a playlist for the tarot symbolism right over here, and another video that I think you'll like up here. Thanks, guys. If you like this video, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell to be notified for whenever I release a new video every single week.